Hey everyone, welcome to session 5 of the Mind Game. We're just waiting for our guest today, Mr. Shalin Balasuriya, to join us. He'll be along in a bit. To everybody who's joining us live on the Fitsky page, this is Fahad Farouk for session 5 of the Mind Game. And today we have Shalin Balasuriya from Spa Salon. Hey, workout done okay? Thanks for joining us. Check out what I have. Pretty cool, I know. So just waiting for a couple of minutes until Shalin comes on, and then we'll be able to start. Connecting. Hey!
Hi.
You can hear me clearly, right?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Brilliant.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have him here with us, Mr. Shalin Balasuriya, co-founder of Spa Salon, a visionary, someone who decided to take Ayurveda and change the face of it as we know it. Ayurveda was traditionally this sticky, yucky kind of thing, but then Spa Salon just made it sexy, made it appealing for everyone, not just in Sri Lanka, but across the world. So the Mind Game with Fitsky, brought to you, of course, by Marmite. Marmite is enriched with vitamin B, which is great for cardiovascular health. It's great to generate red blood cells and also great for your immune system. And of course, Sri Lanka's premier fitness app, Fitsky. During the lockdown period, we had over 4,000 bookings of people signing up for yoga, Zumba, cardio classes, all of those things. And we decided that it was time to bring in experts within their respective fields and pick their brains to see how they're coping with all of the, let's say, shit going on. So first question, Shalin. Almost 2 months of lockdown, what did you do to prevent yourself from going batshit crazy?
Well, initially it was a little hard because initially there was a lot we didn't know. We didn't know how long this was going on for. And the thing about being a business owner or entrepreneur is you got to worry about much more than yourself and your family. There's lots of people whose living depends on a company or a brand or a business. So you need to start looking out for them. You need to start thinking about them as well. So it was a little daunting initially. But when we started getting grips of it, we started understanding a little bit about how long this would go for. You start adjusting. But the silver lining for me of this, while everything else has been going on, is that I got to spend family time that I would have never been able to do. My job keeps me traveling quite a bit and quite busy, so it was a great switch off and some family time. Although about 2 weeks in, we really did get in and get working from home as well. But that a lot of family time I never would have had. I traveled quite a lot, so it made a difference. I cooked. I went for
and
walks.
People at home survived.
I met neighbors. I didn't know. I met a guy just yesterday, and I'm like, oh, how long you been around for? And because he introduced himself, and he's like, I've been here 7 years. I'm like, wow, I'm sorry, I'm embarrassed. So it's I now know most of my neighbors. There's a monkey who hangs out on the road as well. Peacocks and birds and all that. So it's been an interesting time.
And during this time with the discovery of things around, did you discover anything unique about yourself, like something that you didn't know about yourself? Was there time for some reflection?
Well, I always thought of myself as not being a morning person. The only reason I started waking up in the morning, even in the last couple of years, is because that's the only time I could manage to go to the gym, because by evening it would never happen. And I always struggled with not being a morning person, but suddenly I couldn't sleep in. I was up really early. I was spending time out. I mean, I'd go to the garden, just spending time outside, watching what was going on. So I really enjoyed it. So apparently, I love nature.
Well, you're sparse-on, so, natural ingredients and stuff like that. You should love nature.
No, natural ingredients for sure. I mean, plants, herbs, all that. We're into it on a day-to-day basis. We're discovering. I'm fascinated by it. But just, hanging out, really absorbing it, spending quiet time. I'm not a guy who likes quiet time usually. I mean, I'd go out on these very scenic holidays or even Maldives or something like that, and 2 days in, the quiet just, I can't take it anymore. But this time around, maybe I'm getting older as well. I really, really enjoyed that the quiet, the sereneness, that little break made quite a difference.
We have a question from Workout LK. They're asking if you had time to work out more with the whole lockdown.
To be very honest, no. I'm one of those guys that need to generally get to a gym to properly work out. I try to do it at home, but I failed miserably in the first couple of weeks. But after about 6 weeks of doing almost nothing, I've started running again, and I've got a treadmill, so I started doing something. But for me to get those good workouts in, I need to go to the gym. It's just the way I'm built.
Hopefully, gyms will open up again soon.
Yeah.
So, on this point that you mentioned earlier, when running a business, right? So, just want to pick your brain a bit on that, because obviously essential services were functioning. And people might say that, a business like Sparsilon is not an essential service. How did you first deal with that reality? And secondly, how did you deal with the whole people aspect? People worried about their salaries, worried about their jobs, worried about stability, all of these things. What was the process like in dealing with those two things?
So let me start with the people aspect first, because that's the first thing we looked at. As soon as we went into that lockdown and we were told that we were then going into curfew, the first thing we raced to do is go out and get salary advances out. It was the middle of the month. Salary advances out for all our staff. So make sure that everyone had some kind of funds in their bank accounts to get through that time. We didn't expect it to be this long, but we want to make that happen. We also wanted to ensure that we got their salaries in on time, so that at the end of the month they got paid as well. But as time went on, protecting the staff meant also protecting the business, and the business had to be protected for the long term, and that's how you keep the staff going on the long term as well. So you have to start looking at efficiencies. All of a sudden, we were in a position, also being a non-essential, that we went at zero revenue for weeks, and for a retail brand to go zero revenue for weeks is crazy. And we've got a pretty huge retail footprint in Sri Lanka alone. We're probably the biggest single branded retail footprint, because we've got so many locations, a lot of overheads, a lot of rentals, and a lot of staff. So you need to consider all those. You need to start looking at efficiencies, and working towards the best way to preserve the business, the best way to make it so that you make it, you keep it agile,
sustainable,
enough so that as sustainable and agile, so that you can keep as many staff on board without cutting too many salaries and things like that. We had to go in for a little bit of salary cuts a little later on, as expected, and we're hoping we can get out of that as soon as possible. So suddenly we were in a situation where we were at zero revenue. We're in 25 other countries as well, so those countries shut down. Sri Lanka completely shut down, so nothing was happening for about a good almost 2.5 weeks, which was a tough one, because when you pour your heart and soul into a brand and suddenly there's nothing you can do, it's something quite daunting. But thankfully, we spent that time really engaging with our customers. We went out there, we looked at what our customers needed. We started doing yoga classes online. We started doing meditations. We started giving them tips on how to boost their immunity. We started teaching them how to make products at home while they couldn't get their products from us. So we kept quite
creating little competitors.
There you go. We kept quite connected and made sure we still delivered value to our customers, and kept them happy and kept them boosted, which also helped keep our staff motivated and running as well. And no sooner delivery started, it was first Colombo first, then we started getting products out there, because you may not you may not classify us as necessities, but tell a guy who's run out of his shampoo or his face wash, or if you have acne and you suddenly don't have your product, if you need sleep products and you suddenly don't have it, it's a whole
Yeah.
different story for different people.
Absolutely. So that perspective is interesting, right? So when for different people, different commodities can be necessary according to their degree of usage. So there was a question from someone, I don't remember who, but I do remember the question. It's from 2Zen77, who asks, with all of this, how do you keep yourself going? How do you keep yourself motivated? Because no doubt it's like a ton of pressure, obviously. How do you keep yourself ticking with all of these things?
See, I think there were days when you go, oh wow, what's happening after all this? Has it come to a situation that we have no hope? What are we going to do? How are we going to look after the employees? How do you look after the business, and so on and so forth? But something I co-founder, my brother, kept telling me pretty much on a day-to-day basis, which I think he needed to hear as well. So he kept saying, you know what? The human race is a smart race. They've come through so many things, and they're going to come through this as well. It's just a matter of time. So sometimes you need to hear it, and it's good to be around people who got those positive vibes going. I'm generally quite a positive person myself, but then you've always got that odd day where you feel a little hopeless. But that was the big one, realizing that we are getting through this, and we need to get through this in terms of us because of the people around us. And we knew it was a matter of time, and we kept engaged with our consumers. We enjoyed the free time with our family. So you make the best of the time you have.
So I'd like to touch a bit on that aspect of the thing where your brother said where there was a support system, right? So we see some people aren't used to being so much at home that they almost become alien to their spouses, because it goes from a point of just tolerance to irritation to then frustration type of thing, right? But at the end of the day, it's your family, right? And you have to embrace them. So how important was the support system like, and how frustrating or difficult was it to be in each other's face all the time?
Well, I wouldn't lie. There are the odd days when you're in someone's face all the time. It gets difficult. But in the largest scheme of things, for me, it was fantastic, because here I was spending time at home, and I've got a daughter who's just over a year old. So, and I'm a first-time parent as well. So for me,
Wow.
I got time that I would have never got to spend with her. I've got building a whole different relationship with her, because she's just starting to understand things, starting to speak words, starting to do new things. So it was just a fascinating time for me, and it was a very, in a sense, it feels wrong to say it. I felt lucky to be in that position. It does, but that was that was a nice silver lining, because I've got to spend time, which for sure, without a fragment of doubt, I would have never got on a normal working year or normal working month.
There's a question from Nafat Ahmed, who asks, I think you answered this in part, but we'll get into the question. What's your advice to those who start inessential product businesses like jewelry these days? See, I think you mentioned earlier about being engaged and stuff. Yeah.
There is this study about, it's called the lipstick effect, right? During the world wars, how lipstick sales didn't drop. People were not going out, there were bombs going out all there, but lipstick sales didn't drop, because people do need the feel-good factor of it. Yeah, understanding that yes, things like clothing, jewelry, makeup, all that is going. It seems like a luxury. It is a luxury, and very expensive pieces. Yes, it's going to be a problem. People's economic or their share of wallet is going to get smaller. Their disposable income is most likely going to get smaller in the next few months to a year. But keep in mind that people still want to feel good. People still want to feel pampered. People want to make other people feel good. So a lot of jewelry is gifts. A lot of jewelry. Anytime when people buy jewelry, it's either to celebrate something, it's a gift, or to make them feel good, right? So that will still be there, which is the same with cosmetics and makeup and a lot of other non-essential things. So right now, if you're a brand who is in this non-essential space, connecting with your people is what you need to be doing. You need to be having conversations with them in a way they understand. Now, I'll give you an example. Now, we do makeup products as well. So the conversations we're having about makeup is now not look great to go out, but look great for your Zoom call or your next screen interaction. So you need to be catering to the state at where your customer is. Understand where in their lifestyle, both physically and emotionally, your consumer is, and start catering to that. So with jewelry, I think there's still things to play with as far as your consumer base is. You might want to start looking at some mid-range products, I think, because that's where you need to play with a possible recession on the cards. And but don't give up. There's still potential.
On that point that you made about the makeup, I'd like to ask, because a lot of people have this thing of they've built something and they're holding on to it, right? So this is my core product, this is my bread and butter. But as you mentioned, you sometimes need to let go of some things and embrace new things. What's your advice to someone who's like just stuck on, yeah, but this is my core, I can't break away from this, who are refusing to look outside the lines, because you guys are doing that? What's your sort of insight to someone like that, that let go of some things to embrace some other things?
See, there are a few things here. In a time like this, there are a few things you need to do. One of the main things is, let's talk about different aspects. Right? One big thing is staff. Whether you're the staff members, the staff, or the management or whatever, something we can really look at doing is repurposing stuff. Yeah, we've already done that because our business models are changing. Suddenly, we went from a very heavy retail setup and we switched to a very heavy online setup. So now we have guys who were not anything to do with the online department doing customer service. There are guys who are in the stores answering phones for the customer service. So different things like that. So repurposing staff is something you really need to look at doing. Don't say, okay, we hired him to do this, therefore I don't think his job is available anymore. Let's look at someone else. You need to start repurposing, and then you're helping your staff out as well. Plus, as a staff member, you need to understand, yes, you may have been hired for some role, but in the short term, you need to help your company out, take on another role, handle this period well. So there is that side of repurposing the human factors, and that can play a really vital role. There are some huge companies suddenly who've got into logistics. They've got their factory guys riding bikes, delivering stuff, which is fantastic. Yeah, because they're still keeping that. In terms of what you're doing, before you get up and change what you're doing, because that's a big change, and that's something you need to look at. But you also need to look at how does what you do, how does what you sell, your product or service, translate now in this situation, and how do you deliver it to your customer right now? If you can't get your service to your customer, how do you bridge that gap? I'll give you an example. Like I said, we moved heavily to an online space, but there are still a lot of consumers in Sri Lanka, a lot of high-end consumers as well, who are not used to shopping online. All the customers are just not used to doing that. They're the kind of person who will send someone to pick something up. So what we did is we created a phone line where you call. So, have you lost me?
We're here.
Okay.
Got it? Yes.
So
okay.
Yeah. So you bridge the gap. So your offering hasn't changed. The way you offer what you offer changed, which is a great way of bridging the gap. Moving forward is when you need to see, okay, do I need to pivot a little bit from where I am? Can I do something in the short term that's going to help me bridge this gap so that my business can see through past this phase? And look, as an entrepreneur, as a business person, always keep your eyes open. Always, the big thing I always tell people is start looking at the customer. What do they need? And then figure out, okay, how do I get it to them in a meaningful way? And that is the core. So start looking at people's behavior. This is going to be very, very important. The successful businesses that get through this, you'll see, are the people who manage this critical time and then understand the change in behavior and start catering to that. And that's going to be very, very crucial.
I love that point where you said start looking at people's behavior, because that's exactly what Sparsalon did, in the sense that nobody asked for luxury Ayurveda products, right? But you guys understood the behavior and made them understand like this is something you want. So even in this case, people aren't going to explicitly come out and say we want these things, but it's up to the smart entrepreneur to look at the behavior and extrapolate and try and identify those things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So now let's I spoke about this in another thing as well. Let's look at a laundry service, for instance, right? Now people are now going back to work and they're freaked out about bringing germs back. Right now, the first concern for people are going to be safety, right? What if I was a laundry service and call you and said, you know what, I'm going to give you 5 bags. Every day when you come back from home, take your clothes up and put it in it's a sealable bag. Put it in the bag and leave it. We'll pick up all 5 bags. We'll disinfect, wash, and return it, right? And wow, I mean,
yeah.
Why not? And you're thinking, hey, it's great for my family. I want to do something to look out. Why not? Right? So little innovations. There's no huge change in the service, but it's a little innovation that made my life easier because you understood where I am right now. So little things like that.
Excellent. From this aspect of not understanding how long this will go on for, like of course we're getting back to work slowly, but in terms of what we're used to, or even what this new used to is going to be, since this visibility is vague, A, as a person, B, as a business owner, C, as a boss, how do you deal with it within yourself as a business and with relate to the people? Because they're probably looking at you for some sort of stability, like what's going to happen, what's going on. And how do you deal with that uncertainty in the conversations you have?
See, I can answer all 3 of those in one answer because it's pretty much the same, right? So I'll add one more as a business as well. Yeah, the key here is to be dynamic. You can't decide, okay, right now I can't give you a 3-month plan. I can barely give you a 1-month plan. Right now we are running things on a 2-week basis, and even then we are adjusting, right? And that's what you need to do. You need to be dynamic enough as a business person, as an employee, to be able to change and adjust as you move forward, right? So that is the kind of attitude you need to build across the board by making them understand, okay, this is why we are doing this. And a lot of the time, why this gap happens between the staff or the employee and the employer is because it's not communicated to them. This is why we are doing this. You're told, oh, we are not doing that anymore. And the guy goes, okay, fine. But you tell them, this is why we are not doing this anymore. We need to repurpose you. This is why we are repurposing you. And through this, we are achieving this. And basically, it's a lot of questions, a lot of conversations. So I spend my days from home still having conversation after conversation and on video calls, because seeing people is far better than texts or emails or phone calls. Seeing people it has an amazing effect on people. So I spend a lot of time talking to people, and just you need to give them a chance to speak as well. Okay, what's going on in your life? What happened? What's happening in your area? Okay, let's do this. This is why we are doing this, and building that level of understanding so that everyone understands. Okay, we are all rolling in this direction together, right or wrong, because this is what we agree to do. And when people start understanding why you're doing something, they're suddenly on board, and then they become part of it rather than, oh, I was told to do this, so I did it. So I think that's the key. But the key for businesses and entrepreneurs and everybody really is be dynamic. Everything is shorter. If even your consumer is changing, right? Back in the day, you could identify a consumer and say, oh, my consumer is age this, socioeconomic class this, listens to music, does this, travel. But now it's changing. My consumer is at home today, may not be home tomorrow. So I have to change where my message is being heard. Like, would I advertise on drive time radio now? No. Would I advertise on drive time radio when they start going back to work? Yes. So different things like that. Understanding your consumer is key, and being very dynamic is the other one.
Excellent. Of course, conversations, we're human beings, we're emotional creatures, and conversations are indeed the way forward. Speaking of conversations, if anybody would like to join this conversation, you can all, by all means, ask questions. Hey, Empire Clothing Club, thanks for joining us. Any questions that you have for Mr. Shalin Balasuriya, you can mention it here, and then we will ask him, put him in a bit of trouble as well. This is the Mind Game organized by Sri Lanka's premier fitness app, Fitski. If you are the kind of person who has trouble working out at home with the lack of motivation, you want to see someone on a screen helping you, then Fitski is the app that you need to download. It's available on iOS and the Play Store as well. So yoga, Zumba, cardio, whole bunch of stuff available, and also powered by Mind. Question, Shalin, in terms of, let's bring this back to your fitness routine. So, I mean, you maintain a healthy lifestyle. However, in terms of a routine breaking, sometimes that healthy lifestyle slips away because you have so many other dynamics to think about. Obviously, lots of stresses. What are the little things you did in order to ensure that you didn't tip over? Like you mentioned, you started running again and stuff like that. But what are the little things you did to try and maintain an even keel in terms of mental and physical well-being?
I think with me, it's there's always a realization that you need to do this. I can't give you a good enough answer that's going to help anyone else out there, because to be honest, I managed to get fitness in when I had far less time, and here all of a sudden I had more time and I didn't get fitness in. So I've got no motivational tips there, and I'm a bit of a disgrace to this app here. But I'll tell you this: if I did get a trainer online and start doing it, that would have worked. That's something I'm actually considering doing, because that still makes sense for me. Even in the gym I work out with a trainer, that's really helpful. Or if there's a buddy to work out with, that's really helpful. So some sort of video training thing is something, because gyms I think are going to take at least a few weeks to a month longer. So I wouldn't mind getting into something else, because I'm running now out of sheer necessity. I hate running, but working out with a trainer online sounds like a good deal.
So we know your daily routine is like really dynamic and hectic. Someone's asking, Nafhat Ahmed is asking, Shalin, can you talk a bit about your daily routine on normal days? So I'm assuming they mean pre-COVID. What's your routine like?
Pre-COVID, wake up in the morning. This is about 3 days a week to maybe 4. I'm at the gym around 7 o'clock. I am back from the gym at about 8:45ish. Okay, things I haven't mentioned is when I wake up, first thing I do is run through my emails on the phone, reply wherever I need to reply, do that kind of stuff. Get to the gym, have my workout, come back. I'm not a breakfast person. I fast till lunch, so I'll change, get dressed, get to work. I'm generally at office by about 10 o'clock. I'm at office usually from about 10 to about 6:30 under normal circumstances. Back home, and then it's family time, a little bit of TV. End the night again with some going through emails, whatever I need to get done for the next day. Plan stuff out. Put it on my notes and so on, and start all over again. Weekends are a lot of family friend time. If I'm in Sri Lanka. I love being around people, like having a good time. So generally, people come over, we'll go out or do something. So yeah, that's generally life.
So that's the thing. When you have a routine, you know where everything slots in, right? So exactly. Workout is from 7 to 8:45, and when it's not there, it's kind of floating. I want to ask you a bit about the general outlook in terms of your perspective on collaboration. So now there are some brands that might think about, okay, in the shorter term, let me try and link up with somebody else to try and, create a symbiotic effect. Is that something that Sparsalon looks at, or is it something that you are not looking at? What's that thinking like?
See, collaboration, I think, is going to be quite key, especially in this situation where economy is going to be in a very fragile situation, collaboration is important, because if we're going to rise up from this, one or two businesses can't do it, everyone needs to rise. So collaboration is going to be helpful there. Collaboration, as far as Barcelona is concerned, even previously, how we've used collaboration is either to bring in an element that we don't already have in the brand, or to bring in a consumer that we don't have access to and we want access to. So collaboration can be great for brands if done right. But the important thing here is to identify your brand and your positioning and match on that, because collaborating with the wrong people or the wrong brand, it could be the finest brand in the world, but if the positioning is wrong, it can ruin your positioning. Or if the positioning is too high, it just becomes useless. So there's time, energy, and money you spend on collaboration. Spend it well. Again, goes down to look at consumer. Look at the consumer of the person or brand you're collaborating with. Is that your consumer as well? If so, yes. Or is this person or brand bringing something that's novel to you with technology or some sort of leverage that you can use for your brand? Otherwise, collaboration for me doesn't make sense unless you're trying to help someone, which is a whole different ball game.
On this aspect of collaboration, so Sparsilon is a brand that uses a certain caliber of influencers on social media to get their brands and products out, right? So there have been lots of people who are saying that the age of the influencer is probably dying now, because they're speaking from positions of privilege, maybe, or it's not relatable anymore, stuff like that. What's your perspective on influencer and the influencer market? That was, previously a huge buzzing, bubbling sort of thing, but now people are like, should we, shouldn't we type of thing.
See, here's the thing with influencers in Sri Lanka, right? Usually when you're working with influencers, influencer marketing internationally is doing tremendously well. Yes, it's got a little curtailed by what's going on, but what will happen is the influencers will change, and not that influencer marketing is going to go out the door, right? The thing with influencer marketing in Sri Lanka is, if you look at the other countries, influencer marketing, there are specialists in every category, and you can match up with the specialist and go. And when the specialist recommends a product or brand, that's taken as an expert's endorsement, and that creates a different effect. In Sri Lanka, our influencers are not necessarily that. But we do have a lot of influencers that can get people's eye on your brand or your product that you're trying to get across, right? So a lot of the time when we do use influencers, there are a few specialist influencers we use as well, beauty industry influencers. But a lot of the time when we do use influencers, we use it to get a promotion or a product or something in the eyes of the wider consumer. And very consciously, Sparsilon in the last year and a half or so has been reaching out to a wider audience, because we were at one stage very Colombo-centric, almost elitist, kind of very, and people found the brand possibly less approachable. We wanted to break that away, and us going into malls and the kind of content we were doing, it was inviting more younger people, and that's something we did quite consciously. So for that, for the purpose of getting more eyeballs on the brand or a product, that made sense, and that still makes sense. But if you're looking at using an influencer as an endorsement, then you have to pick very, very well, and we don't really have a large proportion of those people in Sri Lanka yet. And if you look at our influencers, they're doing pretty much everything. Everything. So it's how you use that resource, really, like any other resource. So I don't think influencer marketing has gone out the door. The influencers will change, and use them wisely.
We have a question from, who is this? Sandun, who says, how do you plan on growing your business within the international market? Obviously, Sparsilon has a huge international footprint, and with the restrictions, what's the priority like, and how do you plan on growing that?
See, we had lots of things in the works just before this. The good news is countries are opening up. Just last week, we opened a new store in Portugal. Yesterday we opened a new store in Slovakia. So it's starting to look better. The countries are opening up, so plans are going back into place. So just like every other country, people are racing to get things going at the best they can. So the way we are looking at this is as a little bit of a pause that happened, and hopefully we want to get back on our trajectory and hit the numbers we wanted to hit and go to the countries we wanted to grow. We were on the brink of 100 stores, so we want to surpass that quite soon. And the plans are still in place. Nothing has changed in terms of our expansion plans. I think we just need to wait till the different countries are ready for the stores to open and things to carry on, because I think people are eager to get on with their lives as well. That being said, there will be certain changes we make in terms of the kind of products we'll do, understanding the new consumer and the new needs, and I think that'll be more helpful than not, because if you look at there's a little trend happening in the West where now immunity and things like that obviously are important, and people are understanding the importance of it, and they are looking to us, to these exotic countries for our age-old remedies, things like turmeric and garlic, and how we maintain our immunities. I think as Asian countries, South Asian countries in particular, our immunity is responding better than others, arguably, as well. So there these ingredients that people are starting to look at these ingredients. People are starting to look at Ayurveda and wellness, which positions Sparsan on very, very well. So the way we think is, after this little bit of a pause, and when things do get going, that we'll be in even better place to really propel the wellness message through Sparsalon and Ayurveda.
Excellent. So I think the last two questions were very business strategy related questions in terms of how you're handling influences in your international market. Shalin, it's been quite interesting to see your perception on how you look at the whole people aspect first. The fact that you guys, give out salary advances, the fact that you look to reposition and repurpose people. Because a lot of the times people looking at a brand externally can be kind of judgmental in terms of you're very consumer centric, you're just pushing your product. But looking at the entire back end and the things that you all have been doing, it's like super refreshing to see that it's a purpose first sort of step that you all have taken, right? Rather than, here's our stuff, buy it. It's more of here is what we stand for, here's what we're trying to do. And that sort of reflects with the actions that you guys have taken.
No, absolutely. I mean, you have to value your human resource, and not to go to HR, but they are your most important resource. You got to value them, and you also need to value your consumers. So that's why initially we didn't push any product. Our whole pitch was about how are you doing. We were doing motivational quotes. We were saying, look, make your products at home. I mean, this is the brand coming and saying, here's how you make your own products at home, right? Because we wanted to still deliver value, and we wanted to lift people's spirits and still keep that connection. And that's always been a big part of the brand. We're also a family-owned company, and we have been for a long time. The legacy of my mother's company as well, and that was the ethos that she had. And I mean, we are happy and blessed to take that forward.
Excellent. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've had him for about 40 minutes now. A long time. It was supposed to be a 30-minute discussion. This has been the Mind Game by Fitsky. So if you are looking to work out at home, and since the gyms aren't open and you don't have that motivation, please download the Fitsky app. They have a range of classes connecting gyms, yoga classes, fitness centers, fitness instructors, all of these things together. That's an option for you. We have one more question before we say bye to Shalin, and that is, what advice do you give a startup who's looking to mark their presence globally?
Okay, it changes tremendously from industry to industry, but the big picture is this: when all this hit, there were some government agencies who approached and said, you know what, this has happened. We need to get everyone together and start exporting. Then I'm like, okay, start exporting what? No, we have to take our product, since we can't sell it in Sri Lanka, we have to export it. Okay, Now, guys, if you were not exporting before this, what makes you think you can export after this
Yeah.
if your product does not have a USP, or if your product doesn't have something special or a story or something that is going to make sense to someone else to buy it? So the first thing I do is, it's great to have international aspirations, but pay a lot of attention again to your consumers and ask yourself from the consumer's point of view, why would they want to buy this? Does this affect their life in a positive way? I mean, that sounds very philosophical, but look, no one buys anything if it doesn't affect their lives in a positive way. Whether it's physical, whether it's emotional, it has to affect them. And why buy yours instead of someone else's? These are tough questions you have to ask yourself. You can go into a room and come up with the greatest idea in the world, but if it doesn't matter to anyone else, or if it goes over someone else's head, it becomes useless. So figure out firstly what your concept is, what your product is, and whether it makes sense in terms of creating impact. And the other thing is, launch it here, fine tune it, get your act together properly. Sri Lanka is a beautiful country to launch and fine tune products because we are so small, we're so manageable, and there's a lot of connectivity for anything you want to do here. Finding people, getting to know people is not hard in Sri Lanka, right? So I've said this before, it's a great incubation space. Use the fact that you're Sri Lankan. There's little foreign competition still in most of the industries here. Use that to your advantage. Being a local, that is an advantage. Use that. Build your product, release your product, fine tune your product. When it's at a stage where you think you can make it work, then get it out there. And that I believe is the formula for going global. Not coming out with a product and say, here, world, take it. It's not as easy as that.
Okay, so we seem to have a flurry of questions. We'll just take a couple more. There is one which is a compliment from Tisu, who says, Sparsalon is doing really well globally. Really proud of you, Shalin, as a Sri Lankan. Well done. I'm going to combine these two questions from Kevin and Ikram Gems. So Kevin says how to rebuild the tourism industry, but it's more relevant in the sense of this next question. How are you planning on rebooting your business? Because obviously tourists were a large part of the consumers for you guys. So what's your perspective on that in terms of the amount of tourists who come into the country who are buying Sparsalon products, since that's dipping? What's your take on that?
Yes, tourism did play a big role in as part of our. It was a big market segment for us, and by all means, we need tourism back, not just for Sparsalon but for Sri Lanka. It's been terrible because we were so well positioned just before the Easter tracks last year, and we were on a crazy trajectory tourism-wise, and now for this to come on top of that is just sad. But that being said, still, tourism-wise, I've been talking to people in the industry and so on. The way tourists are seeing Sri Lanka is still great. Yeah, and if we manage to hold on to a good record for curtailing COVID-19, that will play a humongous role in us rebounding and how fast we rebound. Yes, the proper rebound in international tourism, I don't think is going to happen globally till such time that vaccine comes out. But I think there is a lot of potential for Asian tourism to still happen. There are already things being proposed, like where you curtail people to a particular resort or these smaller stays. Then we have the whole wellness factor. We have the weather factor. A lot of things going our way. So I think job number one is make people feel safe. That is the absolute first thing we need to do. Make people feel safe to come in, which means handle this well, publish those figures, give a report of safety. And the other thing, if I was in hospitality right now, is I'll be looking at bettering our products. If refurbishments are due, try to do that. I know CapEx is a tough time for CapEx, but it's a great time to get those systems in place, embrace technology, and prepare for bigger things. Our airport needs a big overhaul. This would be a great time to do it without
Inconvenience for a lot
traffic
of
too
people.
much. So there are a lot of things we can do infrastructure wise to get ready. Of course, you're doing all this with a very positive mind frame that things are going to return to normal in time. But I mean, positivity is the only way forward. Otherwise, you're just sitting there doing nothing. So that's my best bet.
Excellent. And that sentiment is echoed from Ikram Gems, who says we should think positively. I think we'll have a good season and hope for the best. Indeed. Thank you so very much, Shalin, for joining us today, for sparing us your time. We hope that you manage to manage your time better, to spend it more with your little daughter without just getting back to work itself. Thank you so very much to Marmite for powering our sessions. Remember, enriched with vitamin B, great for cardiovascular strength, great to regenerate red blood cells, and of course, good to infuse in your workout routine as well. And don't forget to download the Fitski app, available on iOS and the Play Store as well. A bunch of classes available regardless of what you like, whether it's yoga, cardio, fitness, all of those things. We will see you with the next session. Thank you so much, Shalin. Have a great evening. See ya.
Thank you for having me. Good night.
See ya.